So, you know when you're reading a book, and you're like 4 chapters in, and then you realize you haven't been paying attention for the last 10 pages because you've just been listening to the traffic sounds outside? Or like that small, distant recording of hamster dance playing in the back of your mind that never seems to go away? That is what happens when you don't care about what happens in the story. And how can you, as a writer, prevent that from happening in your story? I will let you know here in this video with 5 tips, plus 2 bonus tips at the end. It is something we all want to avoid as writers, and as readers. You know, nobody wants to read a story where they just don't care about what happens. So, reason number 1 why nobody cares about your character is that they don't want anything. And they should be self-explanatory, but it doesn't seem to be, because this is a character that I encounter a lot in my readings. Even of, traditionally published books. If your character doesn't want anything, then nothing matters. Their boss could come into their office and be like, I need you to take this job on the other side of the country. And the character would be like, well, yeah, okay. I'll make some new friends, I guess. Or the doctor comes in and is like, we won't be able to save your mother without a new heart. And your character's just like, well, I guess it's her time to go. Why are you even in this story? In order to make change impactful in your story, you need to set up a situation in which your character cares about what happens. They either have to want things to stay the same and then are forced to change, or they have to want things to change and then are forced to stay stuck in their current situation until they can claw their way out. They must yearn. That's what we as a reader care about. And then we, as the audience, will yearn with them. And if they want things to stay the same, then we will feel all wild and out of control with them when things start inevitably falling apart. Make sure your character wants things. They must yearn. Reason number 2 why we just don't care. Your character does not make any choices. They just react to the things happening around them, and maybe not even that much. This could also look like a character that is so indecisive that they wait until the story forces them to take action. And that's not really interesting to read about. It could leave your readers wondering why that character is even in the story to begin with. Why are we not following someone else who is a bit more interesting, more active? That's not to say your characters can't be indecisive. They can be. People are indecisive, characters can be indecisive, but it needs to be an intentional choice on your end as the writer. How does being indecisive affect them and their lives? Do they miss out on opportunities or relationships? Have they isolated themselves because they can't make decisions? These are things you all want to be thinking about when you are writing a character that can't make decisions. It's a shockingly large number of characters. So I have to imagine the majority of authors are not wondering what is it like to be a person who can't make decisions. They're just letting their characters just bob around in the story, reacting to things, and that is not interesting. Reason number 3 why we just don't care. Your character is beautiful and they don't realize it. Not only is this a heavy cliche, but it's just not really interesting because it's not realistic. I mean, just think of the most beautiful people that you know in your life. For some reason, they are the ones that populate the books that we read. You know, like TikTok levels of gorgeous in every book, everywhere. Why? I don't know. That's just the way it is. That type of beauty could be interesting to explore, but only if the character is aware of it on some level. I feel like if you were that beautiful in real life, you would know. I mean, you'd have to have an inkling. They must know how their looks affect the people around them. Maybe they use that to their advantage somehow. Or they feel isolated because people treat them differently, or are apt to think of them as less intelligent or shallow, or, they can't be friends with them because they'll always just be jealous. Or maybe people don't relate to them because they're just so shockingly gorgeous. Just something other than, oh, here's another beautiful character who has no idea that they are a supreme physical specimen. We just don't care to be reading about those physical specimens. Not anymore, we've seen too many. Too many. If they must be a TikTok level gorgeous person, then they must interact with that in some way in the story. Reason number 4 why we just don't care about your character. They are unintentionally annoying. This is similar to reason number 3, and it is obviously a personal preference. But there could be things your character is doing that is annoying your reader and you don't even realize. Usually this is the result of you, the writer, giving them some character trait without really examining it too closely. Like maybe you wanted to write a supportive character, but instead you wrote someone who's always butting into other people's business and doesn't respect the boundaries of the other characters and is always making people talk about things when they don't want to talk about them. You might have thought that you were writing someone who just cares deeply about the people in their lives, and that might be all that we, the reader, get in the internal narrative. But it's also possible that your reader sees someone who just lacks the self-awareness to realize how annoying they are. Just be sure whatever characteristics you give your characters are intentional, and you put the thought and time into thinking, how does this affect their lives and their relationships? Maybe your character is annoying, and that's just a part of them. They could still be a likable, lovable, roadable protagonist, and yet they do a little bit of annoying things. People are annoying sometimes, and we still love them. But it has to be intentional. You have to be doing it on purpose in order for your reader to care at all about the character, not just hate them and want to chuck the book across the room. And lastly on this list, not lastly in the world, but lastly on this list, number 5 reason why we don't care about your character is that they are very, very inconsistent in their reactions to things in the story. A character could have everything going for them. They have a driving want that powers the story, and flaws that hold them back. They make clear, decisive decisions that have impactful results in their lives. But your reader still won't care about them if they don't react consistently to the stressors of the story. We'll just start thinking that they'll just whip out whatever reaction is necessary, or most useful, or most interesting at various points in the story. No rhyme or reason to why they're reacting the way that they do. We can't rely on the character to be realistic to them as a person, then we just don't really care because we stop thinking about them as being a person. That inconsistency in reaction can really distance your reader from the story, and make them start thinking that nothing in the story actually matters. A bonus tip for why readers don't care about your character is because that you don't care about your character. You, the writer, you have to care. And you might be like, well, of course I care. It's my character, it's my story, I care. But a lot of times, I see this so often, what has actually happened is you have created this fabulous, flawless story that you're in love with and you can't wait to tell, and you're going to tell it no matter who is in the story. No matter what the story is happening to, you're telling it. And the result of that can often be a character we just kind of feel like, you know? Like, if you're willing to tell this story involving anybody, you gotta tell the story no matter what. That comes across to us, and we're like, okay, we get that this is an interesting story, but we don't care because this character, it could be anybody. This is just Joe Schmo. And we don't care about Joe Schmo. We care about, Joseph Smolton. You gotta care in order for us to care. That's what I'm saying. A bonus tip for why people might not care about your story is that perhaps having nothing to do with your characters at all, you are focusing on the wrong parts of your story. This could be a result of ineffective pitching of the story. If you pitched this story as like some kind of heist, but it's actually more like a romance, then your readers are going to be like, where's all the romance?
Strike that, reverse it.
Why is it just this tiny little side plot and they're all, robbing banks or whatever? If you're not focusing on what your readers want you to be focusing on, like the actual true, interesting, meaty goodness, then they're not going to care. No matter how well you write this heist story, if they went into it expecting a romance, they want the romance, So that could be a reason why your readers just don't care about your story. If you found this useful, please subscribe. My writer community